Okay, welcome for this great session. We had a fantastic start before rolling in. Um, I got with me today three wonderful people. We got Michelle and Volker and Rui. So perhaps you want to introduce yourself first. We can start with Michelle.
Michelle. Oh, do you want more than that? I've been working on SAP customer site since about 20 years. And so learning new things is something I do all the time. So I thought, why not join this group of people that are so awesome?
And Rui, you're right below her. So.
Yeah, so Nogueira, working with SAP since 2005. And I thought exactly the same like Michelle, saying, hey, why not talking with great people in the evening with some nice beer? And cheers, Volker, you're the next one. So what else? What better can you do on a Saturday evening?
That's right. So I got a evening red. So that's German for evening red. I'm going right here. And I need this too because I had the worst live coding session of my life right prior to the session. Online check. Apologies to all of you who watched. I'm embarrassed myself, but what the heck. So yeah, Volker Buzek, I work as development architect in the SAP Web Cosmos at a small specialized tech company, so not at SAP itself.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Ronny Sletta. I am a UX developer and what some call me a SAP Cloud Platform Specialist. I work at a Norwegian consultancy called the EY Sky, so it's a part of the EY. And seems like I'm also a amateur stream organizer. So the topic of this session is emerging technologies, and it's about talking about all these new fancy technologies. But I would like to start by just coming with a sort of observation, because I've only been part of the SAP ecosystem for like 5 years. And when I got here, it was very like this, oh, SAP is ERP, ECC, oh, we got this thing called S4HANA coming, and but learn ABAP and do this stuff, and everything will be fine. But then after a week or two, I learned about something called UI5. So, oh, there's some web technologies here. And then I think it was on TechEd in 2015 or something. I heard about HANA Cloud Platform. So I just jumped straight at it. And I sort of got this notion that SAP might have been this monolithic one source of truth thing before, but this has quickly changed into something completely else. So we now have this new reality where the classic SAP systems are a part of a greater ecosystems, and with that you have new possibilities and also a need for updating your own knowledge to stay relevant and to be the best for your clients or your employer. So I thought, could that possibly a place to start? You might have some comments of my observation.
I can start if you want. So, I mean, when I started with SAP in 2005, it was indeed like you said, right? And I remember in the early times where I was leading a project called Code Exchange, right? When it was the first time that SAP wanted to share, provide a platform to share code, right? It was, wow, a big thing at that point in time, right? Had at that point in time also interesting discussions with SAP mentors around the Code Exchange platform. And at some point in time, we decided, hey, we need to close the Code Exchange because we need to move to GitHub, right? And nowadays you see that a lot of code is on GitHub, right? And you see technologies like UI5. I remember when I first saw the UI5 up and running, and I went to the Netherlands to an Insight track and showed it to people. I was so proud, right, to show the people there in room in the Netherlands, right? Hey, this is SAP technology. It's UI5, right? And I remember DJ Adams sitting there and like, hey, this is interesting, right? So and now more technologies are coming in, right? And you see the cloud application programming model, and you see how the various let's say native cloud technologies are finding their way into SAP products, which is pretty nice, right?
Yeah.
Not having to always reinventing everything on our own at SAP, but rather, yeah, using the best practices out there in the market.
So, Volker, you have any opinions on this?
Oh, I have opinions and I have beer. That's what I have.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's I mean, as we described, an emerging technology being adopted by a company, by SAP, at least in the sector I can really sort of have an opinion on, is always almost exclusively done via open source. I mean, there's very few, if any, frameworks these days, be it in CUP, be it in UI5, be it in Kaima, be it in any other, let's say, emerging technology in that sector, that doesn't have at least a majority of open source components. And the reason being is, in my opinion, a major adoption factor out there for the outside SAP world is when you can see the code. So adoption will not happen if you do not have access to the code and you can't look at the bolts and nuts, driving the thing. Then it will not be adopted, at least not that quickly. And in order to change hands and adopt in a different environment, it needs to be open, and that's what we're seeing now all over the place. Yeah. And funny enough, we have about a year ago at our small specialized tech shop, we introduced a machine learning team.
Yeah.
And every now and then they present their project work and they present their work. And aside from the fact that I don't understand anything content-wise that they're doing, all they're using is exclusively open source tools. There's nothing closed source in there. And again, the reason being is in order to be adopted quickly, in order to share widely and broadly, it has to be open.
One thing I've noticed on my journey is sometimes it's not necessarily a reluctancy to adapt to the new reality, but there has been like I should be careful weighing in my words, but like all the veterans are very, very, very protective of what they know, and they seek back to the safe zone, if so to be. You, Michelle, have been working a lot with like knowledge or how to gain new knowledge. Do you have anything on that? Like, how can you renew yourself in the world of SAP?
Well, there's so much out there. There really is.
There you go.
You have all of the online things. You've got blogs. You've got the SAP. What is it for the coursework online? Open SAP. Thank you. You've got Open SAP. You've got things like this. You've got even more if you search on YouTube. I mean, the information out there is staggering. And for me, I'm one of those old programmers.
Veteran programmers.
So, yeah, it's a little bit more of a struggle, I think, to decide where to learn and what should go first before the next thing and then the next thing. That's it. Where do you start building first? For me, it was CDS, which is probably older for some people, but for me, that's where I started as a building block.
Actually,
but it's still relevant, right? I mean, nowadays CDS is really revamping all over the place, right? In analytics, it's in the application programming model, and into much more places to come, right? It's and I think that's also if you would ask me what people should should learn, right? It's, I think, really the basics, right? So if you know what the REST API is, that's important, right? And if you're in the SAP space and you know what CDS is, with REST and CDS, you already can do a lot of stuff, right? And even in ABAP now with Steampunk, right, where you're also being helped to get to the cloud too, right?
I find that really interesting that you mentioned this, because I just had a similar thought in my area of work, so call it the web or whatever. I mean, HTML, JS, and CSS has always been there.
Yeah.
It's the basics.
And what we consider to be an emerging technology now is nothing but a clever combination of those three areas or languages or technologies. And thanks to the computing power of the modern smartphones and modern laptops and computers, we can now use them in a much more powerful way than before. But the basis, as you said, we are still the same. So
yeah.
Even though I have a lot of love for UI5 and a lot of love for Node.js, and so the CAP programming model or the cloud application programming model in its Node.js flavor, I would still say, from a high up perspective, there's things that will come and those things will go again, and there will be UI5 2.0 someday that might look completely different than the UI5 today. CAP might look totally different than it looks now. So, and if you do not have the basic understanding of things, all the emerging technologies will not help you anything, because you'll not be able to grasp them fully and you'll not be able to adapt them quickly. So it's sort of an oxymoron. You have to learn the basics first before you can dive into emerging technologies. So it sounds as if it's a contradiction, but actually it is the way to go, I'd say.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I really like that, Michelle, you brought up the CDS, because I actually found that to be a good bridge builder between me and my ABAP colleagues, because that both the ABAP programming model for Fiori and also with CAP, it has sort of been the bridge builder where, like with Fiori elements, suddenly the ABAPer could create a functional, good-looking application using CDS and annotations. And then now with CAP coming out, also using CDS, they have to, of course, learn JavaScript and Node.js, but there are some familiarity in there, so it's not so scary. And so we certainly have now an influx of technologies that can actually act as bridge builders between what usually was, oh, you run it, you do your web stuff over there. We will do the real SAP stuff down here.
I have a question, maybe to you guys. So, I mean, what I'm seeing, especially in SAP, that there is a lot of things going on nowadays where we try to actually keep away people for having to dive into the technologies, right? And I mean, CAP is a very good example for that, right? Where you model your table, so your data model, right, when in CDS, and then with, as you said, with some annotations, right, that you put into CDS, you get not only a persistence, you get a service, and you get a UI technology on top. So do you guys think that this is something which will make developers move higher on the technology stack, or do you think that people will still try to remain on the very basics and try to do everything on their own? What do you guys think? I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, in my opinion, you're referring to the full stack developer term of sorts, yeah? So when you're good at CAP, you're considered to be a full stack developer because you can do UI, you can do service, you can do persistence.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it not only on CAP, right? I think on various technologies, even on UI5, right? You're bringing with Fiori elements also some additional capabilities to make the UI to provide it with a higher performance, right? So to simply make the developer less having to be too deep into technology, or don't you think that this is true from your working experience, Volker, Michelle, and
Well, at least, sorry, Michelle, I'll answer
Go
first,
ahead.
and then I'll hand it to you. From my perspective, from my experience in working with the toolings you mentioned, the use case is very small. So in order to apply all of what you said, you have a Fiori Elements UI that you can utilize very quickly. You have a service layer that comes on quickly. You have a super quick dependency storage layer. That's a use case that's only that big, but the project actually has usually that kind of a scope.
Where you need to integrate, for example, with other solutions. I see.
Yeah. So there is very few, I'd say, use cases where this thing fits, like you into your shoe. But of course, you can reuse many of those aspects. For example, the Fiori Elements UI. I mean, for showcases, it's excellent because, like that, there's an entire UI and a whole CRUD UI as well. So not only read, but also for maintaining data. But for an actual live project, there's, I think, still, or let me put it the other way. With the standard tooling you have at hand at this time, you get 60 to 70% of the way really quickly. But the rest, 40 to 30%, are always painful, more tedious, and you require more people than just that one person.
I see.
If Michelle has something, and then we have some questions, but you will just answer. Right.
Well, what I see too is you have to know more than just the basics, because there's no way you can cover anything. That's like years ago, and now people saying, oh, you can put SAP in and not change anything. And that is so not true.
Okay, we have actually some questions or topics. I think there's a couple of good here. So the first one is, how can we handle the naysayers on emerging technologies, like for instance managers?
What?
Yeah.
How can we handle what?
So I think it's about how can we get people to actually adopt the new technologies that we bring to the table, and not just stick to what we already know. It's sort of the same with like the reluctancy to, for instance, try out the SAP Cloud Platform.
No, it's like you're earning your wage by working a project, not by trying out new stuff. That's like the mindset you're referring to. Yeah, you can put it in 2 words. I think bad leadership.
Yeah, of course.
I think on the other side, you could say if you are reluctant to try out new things, that's not good, right? But I think if you try out things and you feel like you don't get any value directly, I think that is something that I could understand, right? Where, let's say, you have a very steep learning curve where you need to learn quite a lot until to get the first results. I think that's something I can understand if those technologies are not used. But if you try things out and you're like, whoa, this is great, right?
Yeah.
I think this is something where you then keep imagining, okay, if I can now use this new stuff with my old stuff, I can do things better. I think even the managers would then understand that this is something that brings value because you're doing things faster.
Yeah, but still you need the time budget. I mean, you can't expect, or nobody can expect to do this, or can expect from you to do this in your spare time. Yeah, and I think that's the point. So the management layer needs to recognize that, especially in a cloud-centric at least, or in a web-centric area of work, like self-educating and being on top of things and listening to like what's going on is mandatory.
It's a must.
Mhm.
It's a must. Yeah. Otherwise, you're out of business pretty fast.
Yeah, that's what I think too. You can't just say, no, you have this, this is your job, you only need to do this and that, because things are changing all the time. And without adapting to it, I mean, you are no good to the company and you won't feel well yourself. So I think that's like call out to management, give the people some time budget to educate themselves and stay on top of things.
Mhm. Right. I'll just check out if there's anything from the chat here.
I have a question though.
Yeah,
I
bring
mean,
it.
you guys being SAP internally, let's put the real technology, so the very detailed technology, a little aside, and you look at what's to come on a broader perspective. So what are you seeing as the major influences on technology that we're going to need tools for that's coming? You know what I'm saying? So like a trend, more like a business trend that needs to be equipped with tools that's up and coming that we're not having yet.
Michelle, you wanna give it a try first?
But I don't work at SAP.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So the question is towards me.
Yeah, well, no finger pointing, but yes, the question is to you.
Okay, but I'm here. You are there. You are there. I think what you can see and what will I think mean a lot of changes moving forward this year is the whole notion of integrating SAP solutions with each other, right? So I mean that's something that has been brought up by SAP user groups, by customers, partners, that this is something where something needs to happen. And I was just talking today to Ronnie this morning about a paper. Not sure if you know this paper from Christian Klein about SAP's cloud integration plan. I can also share, if you don't know it, I can share also the hyperlink to it, where Christian Klein, our CEO, is actually has rolled out a plan how we want to provide what he calls an integrated intelligence suite, right? So meaning having all the cloud solutions from SAP covering 4 main business scenarios, something like recruit to retire or lead to cash, and where we want to bring in 7 suite qualities, right? Like security, like an aligned domain model, really to make the SAP cloud portfolio really being experiencing it like one set of or one suite of solutions, right? And I think you will see quite some new stuff. I'm actually just writing a blog post that I will post within the next couple of days, but I don't want to steal myself the storm. But actually going exactly into this direction around aligned domain models, right? Where we want to provide all the solutions that you need for a specific business scenario with the capabilities to have data models that you can share, that they have a seamless user experience, that they have the same security measures in place. So that's something that will drive a lot of new things within SAP, maybe not as shiny, because a lot of work is done in the background without you really seeing some new features. But what it will bring is really making these cloud solutions really being experienced as one set of solutions that work with each other, that know each other's business objects.
That's also really interesting, because I'm just thinking that from a developer point of view. So let's say from my point of view, then the whole SAP Cloud or product becomes more of a black box for me at development time. I do not need to know what component specifically to address. I just shoot in something to SAP Graph, for example, via the API.
Exactly.
And I'm waiting for the integrated component to come back to me with whatever I asked them for. So be it, a purchase order along with the current credit card statement or the credit card transaction referring to the purchase order along with the master data of the customer. So I get this back, and then I can work with that. I do no longer have to care about, okay, I need to query the ERP part. Now I need to query the FI part, and then I need to query this and that part. But there's this one entry, my one entry domain, so to speak, that gives me the entire data from the domain model instead of from the different components. So that's awesome. And I was thinking that because, I'm still of the opinion that sooner or later we'll get, at least in the web cosmos, a revival of AR, augmented reality. Not at runtime, but at development time. Now, wouldn't that be cool? About half a year ago, there was.
What do you mean with augmented reality? In which terms for a developer?
Yeah. Hold on. I'll try and explain.
How many beers have you had?
Wait.
Okay, wait.
Go.
Now I can explain. No. So about half a year or so, a woman approached me, a female student at doing her master's degree. And what she did is she tried to pop out the development editor time from the 2D space in the 3D space. So what she did was she, for example, had multiple devices, and you had not only the browser on one device and the console on the other device, but it was important how you arranged the devices. So you had, for example, the console. If you put the let's say it's a tablet, you put the tablet in front of the monitor, and you have the console running there. Then it gets translucent. Yeah. So you can actually see through the browser to the next device.
Are you sure it's only beer you're drinking?
It was a concept, a working concept. Yeah. So kind of, lose the 2D space, lose the limitation of your mouse and your keyboard, but come up with totally unexpected things at development time, not at runtime.
I think it's
and really... I find this highly fascinating. I mean, we're almost all wearing glasses. Now, if you imagine you have augmented information in your glasses during development time, for example, memory consumption or runtime or so, that you do not need to switch tools to immediately see.
I guess Rui would miss them.
Yeah, I would miss them unless, of course, I have them implanted here in my eyes. That would be even cooler, right? Like Mission Impossible, like.
Okay. We got some questions here. Okay, you want to say something?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if this is what you will see from SAP this year. So I think it will be much more basic stuff in terms of as you pointed out, right? SAP Graph is one example, right, where you can take advantage of what we are building. It's also a separation of concerns. The developer will just concentrate on getting the results from the APIs, and the system administrator still has, of course, to configure SAP Graph, right? Saying, hey, this is the corresponding success factor system. This is my S400 cloud system. This is my Concur system, right? So that you configure SAP Graph to know where the endpoints are, and from that point on, the developer, as you said, it's simply give me the cost center, give me specific account information, right? So that's actually the idea behind what we want to do, and SAP Graph is a good example.
We have a couple of questions, so I think we should take them. The first one is a question: what the panelists, I think that is sort of you guys, what do you think is the most fun of the sort of emerging technologies? So what do you consider emerging technologies? What's the most fun to work with? Michel? first?
Everyone I've tried.
Mhm. Just pick one.
Each seeing, yeah, okay. Probably using the APIs and getting a direct connection into other servers. It's a lot of fun. You grab the data you need. You don't have to do a ton to get it. But then once you get it back, you can start massaging it, making it exactly what you want.
Rui, you got something cool? Exciting?
Oh, there is so many technology at SAP which is fun and nice.
This is where we try to trick you to telling about something that's not been released yet. We got this great AR system for developers. Oh no!
No, but I really mean it. I mean, I'm telling my kids, right? I'm happy enough to work in a company where I can do what I like most, right? And it's simply technology. I had so much fun with UI5 when it came out. I was like flashed, right? And then things came like the cloud application programming model, the extension factory just last year, right? I think also maybe here the fun part is now that also within SAP. I mean, we had the discussion before around having the basics in place, and what I'm seeing is that SAP has now in the past, I would say 10 years, right? We have done so much interesting new technology. Also, a lot of them based on open source, which is available, and we are leveraging and taking advantage of it by connecting things together, right? You see it on the BizApp Studio, right, where we are connecting Kubernetes with Eclipse J, with a former web IDE. So all the things are somehow emerging to something more powerful, and that's what I think is really fun to see how the different various pieces are now being reused to create something even more fun.
Volker, you got something? Sorry for
for me, it's the Node.js runtime of CAP, so the Cloud Application Programming Model. Honestly, screw the Fiori Elements part. I don't much care about that, but the OData part and the persistence part, I mean, the ease of use and the elegance of it is out of this. Is
dragging and dropping an API definition into the server, right?
It's unprecedented. It's unprecedented in I think SAP development work. That's for sure. The Fiori Elements part still has ways to go. There's some really nice efforts that we've also seen at Recap Online when it comes to the yet to be released Fiori Tools, also plugins for the Visual Studio Code. They will ease a developer's life, but as I said, I mean, the Fiori Elements use case is always like this when you in real life have a project like this. So, nice for showcases, nice for some use cases, most of the time not so useful. But the rest, I mean, it's a breeze to work with, literally a fresh breeze. The CAP Node.js runtime.
Okay. And one last thing before we round off. What do you think, personally, would be the best step for SAP to take to drive developer adoption of emerging technologies? So if I can go first, I would like to mention what's closest to my heart. And that is, like, please open up the Cloud Foundry environment for developers. So let us have trial accounts, or don't call it trial, but have a free tier like the other platform vendors that we can use. We can strap it down and don't give us much resources, but let us keep what's there so we don't have to restart every 90 days. Michelle?
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
Yeah, that, and it would help if, unfortunately, if some of the options weren't available, then we would adapt quicker. And I don't think they want to do that, but
no. This is a this is a wish list. It's a wish list.
Right.
So Really?
I'm happy with the SAP stuff. I mean, we are, no, really. I mean, again, if I look back, right, how much SAP is doing today to roll out technology to make it also known, because it's one thing to know it, and the other one how to use it. And the platform like OpenSAP that Michelle mentioned before, it's awesome. On YouTube, you find all kinds of videos. So meaning if you want to learn stuff, it's all there, right? And at the end, if things are useful, they will be successful from SAP. If they aren't, they will vanish.
And Volker, you will get the last word on this.
No, thank you. But first, I want to second your notion. I mean, open up the Cloud Foundry environment and remove the trial limitation, the time frame on the trial limitation. Then make a reasonable pricing model. Jesus, how difficult can it be? I mean, you're not fostering adoption by charging exuberant amount of money compared to similar solutions out there. So if you want to compete in that space, you need to be competitive in pricing as well. I get the whole enterprise approach, and I know it's a different ballgame, but most of what, or at least some of what the cloud solutions from SAP cater to are in the exact same segment that Azure, that AWS, that Google Cloud are in. So you need to come up with a competitive pricing.
And if I may add to it, is that I view like the adoption of technologies like a Venn diagram where developers are driving part. So for SAP customers to adopt technologies, they need to have developers. So that's sort of what you were talking about there, Volker. Like we need to get the developers to enjoy working with SAP. Like for me, working in SAP is like the most exciting place I can be. I feel like I literally changed the world of my clients because they go from something really not good, if you can say that. Like working GUI can be pretty painful at times, and what they can get is like in another galaxy. But it's really hard like to get them to see that because there is less developers in the SAP stack than in the other stacks, and then the people choose them. But let's not go down on on negative.
No, but the third thing I want to mention, and so we had removed the limitation on the trial, come up with competitive pricing. And the third thing I want to like stress again, it goes down a similar road as we already went in the developer panel. So have a unified CLI first, non-lock-in exclusive release of tooling. Yeah. So look at the UI5 people, you look at the CAP people that already chose that approach and how successful they are and how wonderful developer adoption works there, and look at them as a role model on how to do it. And
so to foster automation, right? So that developers can automate stuff, right? That's what that's your point, right?
You know, give us a choice. I mean, I know every developer is different. One likes to work with UIs, one likes to work with the command line. But if you go CLI first and then build on top of that and build, let's say you go CLI first, command line plugin, then you go with IDE plugin, and then you go with an entire UI, but you do not lock in somebody the other way around. You do not first provide the UI in order to have me, the CLI that's down there, to make me use that CLI. No, I want to have the CLI. I do not want to have the UI first.
What is the example that you, or bad example that you see? For
say Business Application Studio? Yeah, I guess I have to. I mean, we had the Web IDE, and it has its usefulness. It has it's really good use cases. For example, adopting Fiori applications, extending Fiori applications. But then the way this was orchestrated and the way it was released and the way it was communicated and the way it looks today is just not so good. It's not so good. It's a Visual Studio, or that it comes across as a Visual Studio clone in the cloud, and you can't not do anything useful with it other than start a CAP project right now. And it's just I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons, and I don't want to talk bad about anybody who's involved in building up the application studio, so don't get this wrong. I'm just saying it was the wrong way to release it to us developers, and it was the wrong way of communicating it to us developers. The intentions might have been good, the outcome is really bad.
I just wanted to understand what you meant with coming down from the UI instead of CLI. Okay, understood.
Okay, I think we are running slowly out of time, so we're 10 minutes over. Perfect. But I would really like to thank the three of you, Michelle, Rui, and Volker, for joining me. I
Pleasure.
hope it's been okay for you too, and I really hope that everyone watching have had an okay time with us rambling on for about everything and nothing. But thank you so much for joining, and I guess I'll see you online, and it's bye for now, I guess. So, bye bye.
Good night and good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.